Have you ever felt like you're living a life that just doesn't feel like yours? Like everything looks okay on the outside. Career, relationships, routine. But deep down, something feels off. Something's broken. You can't quite name it. Maybe no one else even sees it. But you feel it. It's there. A quiet heaviness. A discomfort that shows up as boredom, numbness, fatigue. And that, right there, is where the problem begins. See, we've been conditioned to run from this feeling. We're told that a good life is a peaceful one, that if we're suffering, we must be doing something wrong, that pain means failure. So naturally, we try to escape it, suppress it, ignore it. But what if that's the real lie? What if pain isn't the enemy, but the wake-up call? Nietzsche would have definitely called it out. He believed that the driving force of life isn't our desire for peace or comfort. It's our desire to overcome, to grow, to evolve. He called it the will to power. Now, don't get it twisted. This isn't about controlling others or chasing status. The will to power is about mastering yourself. It's about taking every setback, every failure, every painful experience, and turning it into fuel, into strength, into evolution. So if you're feeling stuck, stagnant, uninspired, maybe that's not a flaw. Maybe it's actually the most honest signal your life is giving you, that you're living in opposition to your nature. Because life doesn't want to be safe. It wants to be intense. It wants risk and challenge, and the kind of conflict that forges real transformation. It wants you to throw yourself into the unknown and come back stronger than you were before. This message, this video, is for you if you're tired of hiding behind your excuses. If you feel like there's something inside you screaming to wake up. If you already suspect that the well-trodden path, the normal way of living, isn't going to lead you anywhere extraordinary. And let me warn you, once you step into this mindset, once you truly understand what the will to power really means, there's no turning back. You won't be able to unsee it. Comfort won't feel safe anymore. It'll feel like a trap. You'll start to notice all the subtle ways society teaches you to be smaller, quieter, more obedient. But if you've got the guts to look at that truth head-on, this might be the beginning of the most important transformation of your life.
Nietzsche famously said, "What doesn't kill me makes me stronger." And he meant it, not as some inspirational quote, but as a fundamental principle of existence. So the question is, are you ready to stop just surviving and actually start living? Here's the thing, Nietzsche didn't write to comfort people. He wrote to shake them. His words weren't decoration, they were demolition. He came with a hammer, not to destroy people, but to smash illusions. And one of the biggest illusions he tried to tear down was the idea that human beings are here to be happy. No, we've been sold that story by religion, by governments, by cultural systems that benefit from us being tame, compliant, and controllable. But Nietzsche believed something radically different. He thought human beings aren't driven by a desire for happiness. We're driven by a desire for strength, for power, not over others, but over ourselves, for growth, for transcendence. And that is the will to power. It's this raw, invisible force inside every living thing. It doesn't want to be stable. It doesn't want to rest. It wants to expand, to move forward, to push past every limit. The will to power is the core energy of life. And if you're not aligning with it, if you're not growing, stretching, evolving, you're not really living, you're just coasting. But let's be clear, living by this principle doesn't mean dominating the world. It means conquering your inner world, It means going to war with your fears, your doubts, your patterns. It's the decision to stop living in reaction and start living with direction. It's when you look in the mirror and finally say, "I'm not going to settle for this version of me anymore." Everything in Nietzsche's philosophy circles back to this core idea. The will to power is at the center, but orbiting around it are some other heavy-hitting concepts that reinforce it, like the revaluation of values, which is basically Nietzsche's way of saying it's time to break the inherited moral code, the old values that glorify submission, humility, guilt. He saw those as tools of control. Instead, he proposed new values rooted in vitality, creativity, and the celebration of life. Or take the infamous line, "God is dead." What does that even mean? It doesn't mean Nietzsche hated religion. It means he believed that absolute truths, unchanging dogmas, were collapsing. And once those crumble, the responsibility of meaning falls on you. You no longer have a script to follow. You have to become the author of your own values, your own purpose. And then there's eternal recurrence, an idea that sounds abstract, but hits like a brick if you sit with it. Imagine living your life over again, exactly the same, for eternity. No edits, no skipping the hard parts. Every mistake, every heartbreak, every choice, you'd have to relive it endlessly.
Would that thought inspire you or destroy you? That's Nietzsche's challenge. It's a test of your authenticity. If the idea of living the same life forever terrifies you, maybe it's time to live differently. And finally, there's the Übermensch, or the Overman. This isn't some superhero. It's an evolved human, someone who rises above the herd mentality, who breaks from conformity, who creates themselves instead of waiting to be defined by the world. They don't ask for meaning, they give meaning. And all of this, the revaluation of values, the death of dogma, eternal recurrence, the Übermensch, it all grows out of the will to power. It all demands one thing: become more than you are. Not as a motivational slogan, but as an existential imperative. And here's the real question. What happens when someone actually commits to this path? When you stop running from pain and start using it? What does life look like when you stop being a passenger and become the one behind the wheel? That's where we're going next, because Nietzsche didn't just talk about strength, he talked about suffering, and he believed it was the gateway to real transformation. If you're still here, stick around, because the next part is where most people turn away, but you won't. You're still listening because something inside you is waking up. You're not done yet.
So, let's talk about suffering. I know, that's not exactly what people want to hear in an age of instant gratification, mindfulness apps, and good vibes-only culture. But we have to go there, because according to Nietzsche, suffering isn't a flaw in life's design. It's the very engine of transformation. You want to grow? You want to be stronger, more aware, more alive? Then prepare to bleed a little. Because real strength doesn't come from reading quotes or watching motivational videos. It comes from walking through the fire and refusing to be burned by it. The truth is, we live in a world that worships pleasure and demonizes pain. We've built entire systems, social, cultural, technological, around escaping discomfort. Everything is designed to keep us entertained, distracted, numb. But Nietzsche saw through all that. He saw pain as something sacred, not something to run from, but something to engage with. He saw it as alchemical, a force that could destroy you if you resist it, but that could refine you if you face it head-on. He said, you must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star. That's not just poetic, that's brutal reality. The chaos? It's the pain, the confusion, the self-doubt, the collapse. And the dancing star? That's the new version of you that only comes after you've passed through it all. And let's be real, some of your most powerful moments came because of pain, not in spite of it. Think back to when you finally set boundaries after years of being walked on, or when you rebuilt yourself after a loss that shattered you, or when you chose to walk away from a situation that no longer served you, even though it terrified you. You didn't grow despite the suffering, you grew because of it. Nietzsche saw pain as the battlefield where the will to power is tested. That's where you discover who you really are. Because when life is easy, anyone can pretend to be strong. But when life rips the floor out from under you, when you're face to face with your own chaos, that's when your real self shows up. And this is exactly why most people avoid this path. Because to truly grow, to truly evolve, means letting go of the version of yourself that's been playing it safe. And let's be honest, that version might have protected you. It helped you survive, but it's not going to take you where you want to go. To become someone new, that old version has to die. That's why growth hurts. That's why self-overcoming feels like grief. Because you're not just stepping into a new chapter, you're burying the one who lived in the last.
But most people don't want that. They don't want to grieve. They don't want to face the pain. So they settle. They get by. They distract themselves and call it balance. But underneath the productivity and the smiles is a person who knows they're capable of so much more, but is afraid to reach for it. So here's the hard truth. Untransformed pain doesn't go away. It recycles. You ignore it, suppress it, medicate it, but it comes back. It comes back as anxiety, as bitterness, as that nagging sense that something's missing. Until one day, you look around and realize you've been stuck in the same loop for years. Nietzsche challenges us to do the opposite. He says, don't flee from pain. Use it. Let it shape you. Let it teach you. Let it forge you into someone the world can't control. Like a warrior who doesn't run when the enemy approaches, but smiles because he knows that this is where he becomes lethal. So if pain is part of the deal, if it's guaranteed, then maybe the real question isn't, how do I escape this? Maybe it's, how do I use this to rise? This is what Nietzsche's philosophy really gets at. It's not about escaping suffering. It's about dancing with it. And if you've followed this far, you've probably already started noticing a pattern. Most people are avoiding the exact thing that would make them stronger. The will to power lives inside all of us, but only a few have the guts to actually embody it. Why? Why do so many of us feel trapped in smaller versions of ourselves? Why do we feel like there's more inside, but we keep falling back into the same routines, the same fears, the same bad habits? Let's be brutally honest. How many times have you had that flash of inspiration where you wanted to change everything, where you felt like you were finally ready to break free, and then nothing? You didn't follow through. You stayed where you were. You went back to the same patterns. Nietzsche would call this decadence, not in the luxurious sense, but in the spiritual one. A slow inner decay, a quiet dying from the inside out. You're alive, sure, but barely. You're functional, but not awake. Because let's face it, being functional isn't the same as being alive. Truly living means confrontation. It means making hard decisions. It means saying no when it would be easier to say yes. It means owning your truth even when it shakes everything. But most people don't want that. They want peace, not real peace, just anesthesia.
a numbed-out existence that avoids conflict at all costs. They want to feel good, not be great. And so, they shrink, they hide, they adapt, they wear the masks, they learn to be agreeable, to please, to blend in. And the result? A powerful soul that could have been a thunder, reduced to a whisper. Nietzsche had no patience for that kind of life. He saw it as a betrayal of our own potential, because inside you is a power being sabotaged every time you make an excuse, every time you back down, every time you pretend to be less than you are just to make other people comfortable. Every time you stay quiet when you should speak, every time you pick comfort over courage, every time you settle for less than you know you deserve, you're telling the universe, I accept being small. And here's the hardest part. No one is coming to rescue you. Not your partner, not your parents, not your boss, not a guru, not a book, not a podcast, not this video. The only one who can liberate you is you. It starts with a non-negotiable decision, that you're done living as a watered-down version of yourself, that you're willing to confront your own lies, that you're ready to kill the version of you that's keeping you stuck. But let's be clear, it's not easy, because the prison you're in isn't made of bars. It's made of ideas, beliefs, stories you've told yourself for years, and you've believed them for so long you don't even realize they're keeping you trapped. Nietzsche called this self-sabotage the vice of weak souls, people who are terrified of their own freedom.
So if you really want to live the will to power, you've got to break those invisible chains. You've got to risk making mistakes, risk looking foolish, risk failing. Because the more you try to protect yourself from life, the less of it you actually live. Nietzsche believed that a person only becomes whole when they're willing to be misunderstood, rejected, even hated, all for the sake of becoming who they truly are. Which brings us to one final question. What does it actually mean to surpass yourself? What does it look like, in real life, to go beyond who you've been? That's where we're heading next.
So let's get into it. What does it actually mean to surpass yourself? What does that look like, not just as a concept, but as a daily, lived reality? Here's the truth. Most people spend their lives trying to conquer the world. Status, followers, money, validation. But Nietzsche flipped that idea on its head. He said the real power isn't in conquering others, it's in conquering yourself. And that's a lot harder. Because overcoming others might take skill, but overcoming yourself takes brutal honesty, consistency, and an inner war that no one else will ever see. You're not fighting an enemy out there. You're battling your own comfort, your own lies, your own fear of growth. And that's why most people never even begin. Nietzsche believed life is a constant state of becoming. You're not a fixed identity. You're not just who you are. You're a work in progress, a flow of choices, changes, and confrontations with your own limitations. And the only life worth living? It's the one where you constantly destroy and rebuild yourself, like an artist, shaping your own soul into something stronger, sharper, more alive. But here's the part no one wants to admit. Self-overcoming hurts. It's painful to outgrow your old self. It means betraying the version of you that got you this far, the one that kept you safe, played by the rules, avoided conflict, did what was expected. That version might have saved your life at one point, but now it's the cage you have to break. Because to become something new, something greater, something real, you have to be willing to burn what no longer serves you. And Nietzsche never sugarcoated this. He didn't believe growth was linear or pretty. He knew it was messy, chaotic, full of setbacks, full of nights when you feel like everything's falling apart, and mornings when you rise with fire in your chest.
But here's the secret. Real power isn't never falling. It's getting back up as a stronger version of the one who fell. Surpassing yourself means challenging that part of you that wants to stay the same. It means refusing to be ruled by your old excuses, your stale patterns, your convenient lies. It's standing in front of the mirror and saying, "This isn't all I am. I can do more. I will do more. And I'm done sabotaging myself." It's choosing the suffering of growth over the comfort of stagnation. And Nietzsche captured this journey in his idea of the Übermensch, the overman. This isn't someone who's perfect, it's someone who breaks from the herd, someone who doesn't live to be accepted, but to be authentic. The overman doesn't follow the world, he shapes it. He doesn't wait for life to give him meaning, he creates meaning. And to get there, you have to walk alone. You have to leave behind the inherited identities, the labels, the expectations, the rules, and forge a new existence, one that isn't a product of your environment, but a reflection of your inner truth. The ultimate test of your power, then, is this: can you be reborn? Can you abandon the version of yourself that everyone knows, even if it's painful, even if it's terrifying, even if it feels like losing everything? Because only from the ruins of the old can something truly new emerge. And Nietzsche didn't write for dreamers. He wrote for fighters, for people ready to set fire to their own illusions and walk through the ashes with eyes wide open.
But here's the catch. This process doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens here, now, in this world. A world that rewards conformity, that's addicted to ease, that worships dopamine over depth. So the hardest challenge? Living the will to power in a society that does everything to weaken you. Try to live with intensity today, and people will call you unstable. Try to speak your truth, and they'll call you selfish. Try to grow, and you'll be labeled arrogant. That's the paradox of our time. We live in a world that preaches freedom, but rewards obedience. A world that talks about self-expression, but punishes anyone who dares to be different. A world that celebrates authenticity as long as it fits the algorithm. And Nietzsche, if he were here, he'd probably spit on the ground and say, "You're being trained like cattle." Because everything around us, technology, wellness trends, social media, is engineered to keep us pacified, to make sure you stay comfortable, distracted, and domesticated. But the will to power, it doesn't survive in comfort. It suffocates. To truly live it, you have to become the outlier. You have to be the one who disturbs the system, the one who won't shut up, the one who'd rather be hated for who they are than loved for a filtered version of themselves. You'll be mocked, misunderstood, left behind. But in return, you get something priceless. Integrity, strength, presence, clarity, self-respect. You'll look in the mirror and finally see someone you actually recognize. And that's what Nietzsche really wanted, not followers, but arsonists. People who would burn down the lies they've been living, who would take their pain, their rage, their potential, and turn it into a life that's undeniable. A life that's not just about surviving, but creating, building, forging, evolving. And if you live like that long enough, something incredible happens. You start to look back and realize that you don't even recognize the person you used to be. That fragile, insecure, people-pleasing version of you, they had to die for you to be born.
And now we arrive at the final, unavoidable question. Will you choose strength or comfort? Because you can't have both. Comfort promises a quiet, predictable life, but it's empty. It tells you to stay put, don't risk, don't reach, just survive. And maybe you listen because it's easier, safer, more acceptable. But deep down you know it's killing you. You know that if you keep going like this, you'll reach the end of your life without ever having really lived. Strength, on the other hand, it demands everything. It demands that you leave behind the old versions of yourself, that you say goodbye to the lies, the patterns, the fears that used to define you. Strength will break you, but it will also rebuild you. Because strength doesn't promise ease, it promises meaning. And Nietzsche believed that life only has value when it's lived like a work of art, a masterpiece built from scars, sacrifice, and constant self-overcoming, where every fall becomes the foundation for something greater, where pain is not avoided but used, where you stop seeking permission and start becoming someone the world can't ignore. So now it's on you. If you've made it this far, then something in you is already shifting. Something's waking up. You can feel it. And that force, it's not going to let you go back to sleep. You can either bury it with distractions, or you can rise and let it reshape your life. So, be honest. What part of you needs to die so you can finally be reborn? Drop your answer in the comments. This space is for the people who are done playing small, for those who aren't afraid to look their own shadow in the eye. And if this video hit something deep, share it with someone who needs the truth, even if it hurts. Because transformation doesn't happen in one step. It's a process. And I'll be right here with you, step by step, word by word. See you in the next one.